You've met our speakers now, so I'm going to invite our panelists. I guess we'll start here on this end, and then have our panelists introduce themselves and explain why they're here.
Hello, there we go. I guess you gotta hold it, press and hold. Okay, so I'm Sterling Allen with Siemens PSE. I'm a business development director in the energy and chemicals business unit, and I'm officed out of Houston, Texas.
Hello, my name is Joel Messina and I work for Phoenix Contact. I'm in the vertical market on the automotive manufacturing team and based out of Detroit, Michigan.
Absolutely. So we're keeping it short. I'm getting with interest.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So my name is Artem Krupanev. I head strategy at a company called Augury, a leader in machine health, working with manufacturers. Manufacturers like Nestle Purina.
Okay. So do we have someone in the room to help us with a microphone? Okay, good. I think Tim will help us out. So we like to have an interactive session as much as we can here. So we'd love to have questions from the audience. So we can start here with this gentleman.
How you doing? Mike Richards, Johnson & Johnson. My question is for Chris. Some of the returns that you mentioned seemed amazing. That would lead me to believe that leadership is just throwing money at you. What is the flip side of that? I mean, what challenges did you see? What friction or resistance to digital transformation in applying those?
I'll take it if you don't mind. So I think from a friction standpoint during the pilot studies, the toughest part is actually pulling together the digital process twin model. We build that in Siemens GPROMS software package. It's an equation-oriented advanced process modeling tool. And just actually building the process models for the complex utility systems themselves and getting all the equipment specifications and unique configurations, because every plant is different. There's no cookie cutter refinery or petrochem plant out there. So just getting all the unique specifications and getting a well-validated process model is really the toughest challenge, and making sure you've got it down. So we don't put the model online optimizing your systems until it's well validated and we can show it and demonstrate it to you. But that is the toughest challenge.
Okay. So Chris, are they really throwing money at you? Is that the...
Yeah. I'm assuming. Which Chris were you
This is a new partnership. So the pilot studies are recent as of this year. So results were coming out. We concluded the pilots around the end of January, and they'll start throwing money at us in a couple months.
Okay.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Nathan Hoisington Shaw from Owens Corning. One question, is there, as you went through your digital transformation respectively, was there a resource or a capability that you wish you had more of at the start?
Anybody?
Yeah. All of you.
Yeah, I'll go first. Absolutely. I think there was definitely that everybody wants to make a decision and just run with it, right? But the professional meeting attender thing definitely comes into capacity is how much do you have to do from a selling perspective versus provide some clarity on the vision. That largely comes from a grassroots movement, which is back to that pull concept. So I think from a resource perspective, it is getting people to understand what the vision is. How can you get more of that? How can you get that enthusiasm and that engagement, and then they help do the selling for you? So you can do it with who you've got, or the folks that work in the organization, but that enthusiasm and helping to kind of embody that vision and move forward with it, it's hard to achieve, and that's what I think would make it easier if we had more of that. But that's all part of a visionary kind of movement is how can you embody that and get that engagement early on. So lots of meetings.
I could add on to that. Looking at so this was 10 years ago when we were building Augury. We were faced with a question. Do we achieve results right away? Is it all value based, or do we build for a larger vision? And so we said, well, why don't we do both, right? And how do we do both? But the key there, and that's what was great about that presentation, is the key is really around engagement, right? For whatever reason, traditionally, the majority of systems platforms that have been built in manufacturing were based on fear. And what I mean by that is, what happens if I don't press that button? What happens if that red light stays on? What happens if I don't do my checklist? There's a good reason for that. But that's not the way the world of technology works, right? And the interfaces and experiences of technology work. So the interface and engagement with people and what we're enabling them to do to actually progress, not just eliminate fear, but actually progress in their job, go from fear to making decisions, go from fear to brains. That was really the key to enabling that. And so if we can provide that as a service, then that, it makes the jobs of people who are in charge of digital transformation so much easier because they get the results and they get buy-in at the same time. So that was really the key from a provider perspective of unlocking that capability.
Any other panelists want to comment on engaging the people? No. It's okay. We have a question in the back of the room here.
My name is Becky Morgan, and I work with manufacturers. Most of what I read about digital transformation says you're supposed, that upper right-hand corner that you had in your graph, we're supposed to have a vision of what we're trying to get to, and then we lay out our roadmap for our digital transformation. I didn't hear any of you guys talk about roadmap, and most of what I see is people who can't envision what's possible. So it tends to be more, let's try this, let's do this, and as they move forward, maybe a vision comes into place. So can you guys, especially the practitioners there, can you talk about, did you have a vision out there for your digital transformation? Did you create a roadmap, corporate-wide, factory-wide, anything-wide?
Yeah, I'll take that up first. We definitely have a roadmap, with some short-term goals and some long-term goals of where we want to be or where we think we want to be. Because I guess a very important point too with digital transformation is to recognize that, what you know today, you didn't know a lot of that 6 months ago, and even what we're going to learn 6 months from now, we have to be very agile to not lock ourselves in that roadmap. But definitely having that vision is important. And even like my specific application with augmented reality that I presented today, that's actually a key piece of some of our building blocks of where we were going from the crawling to walking. And that architecture, how we designed that and how we actually implemented that, we also give that to our vendors that are developing software for us, and even other vendors that are coming to us that say, hey, we want you to use our off-the-shelf software, and we use that as an actual example to say, hey, we tried this, it works in production, but long-term, we want to buy software from you guys that, works in this same type of manner. So we're actually using it as more of a demo and a proof that this can work in production, but be part of that bigger long-term goal of how do we get our vendors up to speed, because that's actually a topic that we encounter quite often, that digital transformation is new to everybody. And for us, I'd say for the vendors, they're taking their best stab at how they think their end users are going to use it or what their end users want to buy, but we want to be very transparent with them in that vision of this is where we want to be headed. And when we buy software or equipment, these are the key pieces that you need to have.
Yeah, so when you talk about roadmap, when it comes to sustainability, raise your hand if your company doesn't have a corporate sustainability goal now. Everybody has them, right? So what we see is that all these corporate boards have set goals and targets for 2030. I was on a customer meeting this morning where they told me our target is 30% by 2030 in CO2 reduction. But what tools are the corporate boards giving to their companies and their facilities now? That's what we're offering, is something that's the first step for these companies to take. And what we're seeing from what we demonstrated in our pilot was they can get about, if their target is 30%, they can achieve 4 to 5% of that now this year, where they're starting to reduce that CO2 now. For companies that don't have a roadmap, we can be the starting point for them. And because the underlying technology is process optimization, it's something that can be used throughout their journey anyways. So it's a great starting point.
To expand on that a bit, from our perspective at Nalco, it was same idea. We have the Paris Accord, we have goals 2030, 2050. But what are we doing about it today? And what do you have at your disposal today that you can do something with? And it's people, it's the operators, it's the people running these facilities. If we give those people's tools digitally that are accessible, that are here today, that are based on sound science, well, the capital expenditures, the new technologies, retrofitting plants, that can all be done, but this is what we have today. We have the power of the people on those facility floors, and let's give them a tool, let's help them make a change without waiting for those big spends. So it was as much looking at what do we have at our disposal to work toward these goals versus the ideal state, which might be 3 to 5 years off in many of those cases.
I can add to that too, is, from a road mapping perspective. How about now? Better? Better one, better two.
Pull it in, yeah, pull it close.
All right. So adding to the roadmap question is we did have a roadmap, but I think it's going to be highly aligned with what are the corporate initiatives, at a very high level, sustainability metrics, energy reduction, whatever is important from today's burning platform. When we started our department in 2019, we had goals, we had a roadmap, but something happened in 2020. I can't really remember what it was. And our goals and our roadmap is very different now, right? So it's all about connected worker, remote optimization, and that roadmap has basically just flipped the table over and is dramatically different. But the corporate initiatives really haven't changed. So what are we doing from unlocking the technology to achieve those corporate roadmap objectives? And that's really where I think the digital transformation becomes a very moment in time thing. And a roadmap, if you spend a lot of effort and time trying to get to that roadmap at some sort of executable level, many times it's going to be wasted energy. So we do have a vision out there. It's a 1 to 2 year vision that we take seriously. Aspirationally, we want to get to full operational digital twinning, where the robots are taking care of us and letting us know when they need to jack into the back of our head for power. But from that perspective, that's a ways out. So I think the energy that it takes to create a very kind of relatable roadmap, we found hasn't provided a whole lot of value.
Okay, thanks. You have a comment as well?
Yeah, I was going to mention that it's important to look at the digital transformation as a strategy too, and not just a project. There really is no start and finish. It's a continuous loop of improvements. Your needs change over time as knowledge is found as you take these progresses through your transformation. And so the roadmap, like mentioned, all good. It's good to have vision, have a target that you're aiming for, but that target moves, the field moves as knowledge is uncovered throughout your process.
Okay, great. I want to thank you for that question, because that's really is the kernel of the problem. If you can figure out that vision, the way you articulated it, and then a roadmap, yeah, it's got to be dynamic. It'll probably change. But I mean, we have a group of users that we meet with frequently, and this is some variation of this is always on their mind. So I encourage you to keep asking that question at all the sessions. We have a question over here.
Yeah, Ted Connell with Blue Skies AI. I'd like to follow up with that great question and change axes to the y-axis and say, okay, you've just done some cool stuff. How do you scale it across a global organization?
So we have been fortunate enough to work with over 100 manufacturers and scale from 1 factory to 30, 40, 60 factories in under a year. So some manufacturers that we work with its process, in some cases chemicals, oil and gas, obviously food and beverages and so forth. some of them, this has been the fastest rollout of digital technology, IoT and AI they've ever seen. Colgate's a good example. There's a number of other good examples like that. Obviously, Nestle is one of the examples. And the key to scale is really, are you solving the problem? You're providing value. Is there a very clear pull from the plants themselves, right? So there's, you can call it usability, but it goes way beyond that. There's also trust in that level. And the third piece is that what we found is, being a provider of this that helps companies scale with digital technology is the partnership aspect in terms of directors of innovation or VPs of manufacturing or SVPs of supply chain put their trust into our roadmap because their success in the future depends on our roadmap as well. So taking responsibility for that capability and delivering it is very much part of it. And then again, vendor's perspective, but holding a vision for our part of the industry, whether it's machine health or process health, and taking care of taking the guesswork out of reliability engineering and maintenance, or taking the guesswork out of process engineering or in operations. Holding the vision for that piece, for that application, is really what drives the value in that partnership, right? And especially if you have open innovation, open architectures, then making sure that you hold not just that solution for now, but 3, 4, 5 years down the line is what drives part of that success and part of that at scale rollout for our customers.
I'll take that also. For us, as long as we, design a solution, right? From the technology side, hasn't really been typically that hard. Where we normally find the hiccups is more on the people side. So, I'm directly, implementing, let's say, on the plant floor and getting those users, the operators, the quality people, whoever it is, that actual end user I look at as my customer. How do we get them to adopt this technology and actually want to use it and not just throw it off on the side and say, I don't want to use it. And so from the people aspect of it is, where we also need to look at it, not just from the technology of, throwing it on more servers.
I think there's one follow-up to maybe to a different point of your question in terms of scalability. There's not only the product itself, if you are looking at the scalability in terms of a pull, of course there's got to be value there. And that was one of the reasons that we partnered heavily with Augury was, 2-3 weeks later after we implement sensors, we got mechanics that are like, where's this been my whole life? And that's a huge aspect. So that pull is very, very strong. But there's also kind of a twist to that is, does it really need to go global? And I throw that question out there as a little more thought-provoking because there's so many localizations that are needed in order to kind of get that pull at a local factory or site or even a country that might not resonate with other countries. And we ran into that pretty heavily with some of our global, it turns into a push. And then you kind of lost that whole effort and that scalability. So, it's a good question. How can you get to that? I know Augury and others have kind of a global support structure, and multiple languages, 24/7, follow the sun type approach. But in terms of that pull, is it right to have a single global solution? In some instances, yes, but you also have to make sure that it resonates with the local community that you're trying to get it into.
Don't you also want to have, all of your plants across the world ramping up at the same time as much as possible? So
as much as possible. I think there is value in that. And you kind of mentioned that in your presentation was, MQTT is a standard for communication. So I think they all have to be kind of taken in stride with what are you trying to globalize? And my only thought-provoking question was, is a one-size-fits-all right for every situation? I definitively say no. It makes sense in many, for sure, but not every situation. And I think that was maybe kind of an undertone to some of what we're feeling in the room at the operations level, is especially with large global companies, there tends to be a pretty heavy push where it just doesn't resonate, or it might not even financially make sense.
Well, we've seen with some of the solutions out there today. Well, historically, we could see so you kind of land and expand, maybe run a pilot and figure it out and then scale it everywhere. It's a little harder with some of today's solutions. So.
I'll pile on just very quickly. What we see that kind of limits that scalability is that solutions out there tend to compile data infrastructure and insight infrastructure or intelligence and workflows. It's all together, right? But our approach or our advice would be standardize your data infrastructure and standardize your insights because you want to see what's happening. But you don't have to standardize your workflows, right, across the plants, because sometimes the people are used to working that way, they have the right level of support. If you can disconnect between them and create the level of interoperability that you need, then you can scale a lot faster.
Okay, do we have another question here? Okay, hold for a moment. Can we get the mic down here, Tim? Right here, second row. Thank you.
Emmanuel Vasquez, Era Energy. It's a question for the digital twin. It's in regards to sustainability after the pilot. What are some of your plans to keep the integrity of your system?
Yeah, the system is complex because it uses an advanced process model in the background, and it connects up with the plant's DCS system and the plant's data historian. So the data historian's informing the process digital twin, the advanced process model in real time, the state of the plant, and then it's optimizing to send back to the operators and tell them advise them on the best decisions they can take now to drive the plant towards optimal set points. So it is complex, and we're planning for that by providing long-term maintenance and support of the system. And additionally, our partners in Nalco have on-site personnel that are there to help drive the adoption, and the system is very easy to use for the operating staff. So we're not worried about adoption uptake with the system because the operators get real-time feedback, and they feel good when they leave their job about how much CO2 did I help reduce in my community today. So.
Okay, thank you. And then just to follow up about the digital twin, how difficult is it to configure it and set it up so you start getting results the first time out?
Yeah, I touched on that earlier, but it's not the simplest in the world. I mean, they're utility systems, so we're not, they're from a process modeling standpoint, they're not really pushing the limits of our software at all. But the configuration aspects of each plant being unique, that's the real challenge on our solution, and that's where we have questions about scale, is building those process models for many different customers simultaneously. And so, we have commitments from our leadership at Siemens, and the Nalco leadership has made strong commitment to make sure that we are going to be scalable with this solution. So that would be the biggest challenge, is setting up the digital process twin.
Okay, thank you. So we're nearly at the end of the session. So I think maybe what I'd like to do is I have a question for Artem, Joel, and Sterling. If each of you could just answer me about really what's next for your, what are you doing next to support your customers on their digital transformation journey?
Sure. So I mentioned that we're a leader in the machine health space, which means operators, technicians, and reliability engineers know exactly what they need to do with the machines, how to fix them, exactly where the component level months in advance, and thereby eliminate downtime, and of course, increase capacity for manufacturing operations, optimize significantly, and they do that very, very quickly. So from that, you mentioned from the second the sensors there, they already know the insights, and then it scales across the full portfolio of their plants. So that's the reliability or the machine health use case. What we've done now, we're actually, through an acquisition, a company called SIBO, we're adding process health into the mix. And process health is essentially doing the same thing that we've done for reliability engineering, doing that for process engineering. So a process engineer, instead of doing all the guesswork to figuring out what is affecting their quality, their yield, or throughput, they would know exactly what are the parameters that are affecting it. And so they have essentially a golden run or a perfect run every time automatically optimized for their production lines and processes. And then the next step from there is combining between both. So we call that production health, meaning that how are your assets, how are your machines affecting your quality, how is your quality and your throughput operations are affecting your asset utilization precisely, which machine is affecting what and how, and then combining your maintenance schedule with your operation schedule, right? Kind of a holy grail of production. And doing that across your portfolio so that a company that has 30, 40 plants can say, it's better for me to produce this product here in the winter and this product there in the summer, based on both asset utilization and process optimization that they have. And all that is obviously powered by AI that's highly sophisticated, highly accurate, highly usable. So that is the roadmap that we have. We already are there with a number of our customers, but really empowering cross-functional production teams so that it's not maintenance and reliability, process engineering, but really one team that is running plants and operations globally in a way that the insights are at their fingertips, and they can make decisions that part of them are automated, part of them are really longer-term optimization initiatives, and accelerating what we call manufacturing excellence, from years to months. So that is the vision, and that's kind of the goal for digital transformation. But it's very practical, driven by these two concrete use cases around process health and machine health.
Okay, thank you. Joel?
Well, Phoenix Contact has developed PLC Next technology as one of our main tools for digital transformation and IoT, and especially pulling information off of existing assets or brownfield technologies, and giving a platform to be able to kind of commonize and manipulate this data before it's served up to the higher level applications. But with that development, we've been developing machine learning type modules that will sit line side, so more of a machine learning on edge, if you will, and building your flows and getting that data at the source, as opposed to streaming data up to a server application and relying on those metrics and those that kind of data pipeline. So we continually have development and effort in bringing some of the IT tools down to the production floor and providing an open platform depending on what languages and technologies are currently used and where your company is going in the future.
Okay, thanks, Joel. And Sterling?
So in the energy and chemical space, the biggest gap that I see and where we can help our customers the most as far as digitalization is companies spend and invest so much time and resources in the design and development of a new process and putting that process online and actually realizing it at the manufacturing level, that there's a big gap in time between the time that the design is complete and the R&D work is done, and they go through EPC and then actually build and develop the plant. There's just this gap in time. There's disparity in the tools that they're using. So where we can really help those companies is taking the knowledge that they developed during the R&D process, taking the process models they might already have, most of them do, and using those to leverage better manufacturing decisions in real time. So that's where we're helping to bridge the gap with our current customer base.
Okay, thanks very much. Well, I'd like to ask you to join me in thanking our speakers and panelists here today.